Jungkook's childhood best friend Suzy returned from US after 4 years, and just like that, something in him shifted. At first he told himself it was just nostalgia, just surprise. But then Suzy started showing up more often at places he visited, at events, even in conversations he didn't think she'd be part of anymore. And every time she appeared, Jungkook's attention drifted away from his girlfriend, YN. YN noticed it before he said anything. It wasn't loud. It was worse than that. It was absence. He stopped replying fast. Stopped looking at her when she spoke. Sometimes she would catch him smiling at his phone, but not at her messages. One evening, YN finally asked, voice quiet, "Is something wrong or is it me?" Jungkook hesitated. That hesitation said everything. "It's not you," he said quickly, but his eyes didn't meet hers. "I just have a lot going on." A lie wrapped in politeness. Because the truth was simpler and messier. Suzy made him feel like the boy he used to be. Before pressure. Before expectations. Before guilt. And YN, she made him feel everything he had become. He started avoiding her properly after that. Short replies. Cancelled plans. Late replies that came with no emotion. And slowly, YN stopped chasing. But what hurt her most wasn't Suzy's return. It was how easily Jungkook let her become invisible. One day, she stood in front of him again, blocking his way before he could leave. "You don't even look at me anymore," she said. Jungkook exhaled, tired, conflicted. "I'm not trying to hurt you. But you are," she replied softly. "Just without touching me." A silence fell between them. The cafe was crowded and loud, but the moment YN walked in and saw Jungkook sitting beside Suzy, everything around her went strangely quiet. Suzy was laughing at something he said, comfortably. Like she belonged there. Jungkook looked up first. His smile faded slightly when he noticed YN standing near the entrance. "Wine?" Suzy turned curiously. For a second, the two girls simply looked at each other. YN had imagined Suzy maybe colder, maybe arrogant. But Suzy looked warm, pretty, familiar with Jungkook in a way that immediately made YN uncomfortable. Jungkook stood awkwardly. "You come sit, meet Suzy." YN forced a small smile. The tension hit instantly. Suzy quickly stood too, trying to ease the atmosphere. "Oh, you are YN, I'm Suzy. Jungkook talks about you." YN glanced at Jungkook. He looked away. That tiny reaction stung more than it should have. "Does he?" Yen asked calmly. Suzy nodded innocently. "We grew up together, so." "He's been catching me up on everything lately. Everything lately. Not with YN, with Suzy." Jungkook rubbed the back of his neck. "Sit." YN sat down. The conversation felt wrong from the beginning. Suzy and Jungkook naturally slipped into old Memoria school stories, childhood fights. Funny incidents only they understood. Every few minutes, they burst into laughter, while YN sat quietly stirring her drink, invisible again. At one point Suzy smiled at Jungkook teasingly. "You still do that thing when you're nervous." Jungkook chuckled softly. "You noticed? Obviously. I know you too well." YN's hand tightened around the cup. "Too well." Jungkook finally noticed her silence. "When, you okay?" She looked at him for a long moment, finally nodded. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. Wedding catalogs and engagement outfit samples were spread across the table, untouched for hours. YN stood near the window with her arms crossed while Jungkook loosened his tie, already sensing the tension waiting for him. "You ignored my calls again," she said without turning around. "I was with Suzy." Straightforward, casual. Like, he didn't realize how sharp those words felt lately. YN laughed softly. But there was no humor in it. "Of course you were." Jungkook frowned immediately. "Why are you acting like this? Every time her name comes up." She turned to face him then. "Because every time her name comes up, you disappear from mine." Silence. Jungkook looked tired now. "No, listen to me this time," she said firmly. "We're getting engaged next month." "Next month?" Jungkook. "And lately I feel like I'm forcing myself into your life." "That's not true." "Then stop making me compete with someone who already has a place in your heart." The words hit harder than he expected. Jungkook's jaw tightened. "You're overthinking this." "Am I?" She walked closer slowly. "You cancel plans with me for her. You smile at your phone because of her. You look alive around her lately. That's because she's my friend. And I'm supposed to be your future wife." That finally shut him up. Wion's eyes looked hurt more than angry now. "I'm not saying you can't care about her," she said quietly. "But boundaries matter." Jungkook scoffed softly, frustrated. "So what now? You want me to stop meeting her?" IN hesitated, because saying it out loud made her sound insecure, controlling. But losing him felt worse. "Yes," she admitted finally. "At least until we figure ourselves out." Jungkook stared at her in disbelief. "You're seriously asking me to cut off my childhood best friend?" I'm asking you to choose your relationship before it breaks. His expression hardened slightly. That's unfair. And what about what you're doing to me? She shot back. You think this feels fair? The room became heavy. Jungkook looked away first. That alone terrified YN. Because before Suzy returned, he always looked at her during arguments, always held on to her somehow. Now, he looked like someone being pulled in two directions. You don't trust me, he muttered. Yen's voice cracked quietly. I trusted you enough to plan a future with you. That made him finally look at her again. And for the first time, Jungkook realized this wasn't jealousy anymore. It was YN slowly feeling replaced before becoming his wife. Jungkook's house felt colder every time YN visited lately, not because of him. Because of his mother. The woman never directly insulted YN in front of Jungkook, not openly. She was too elegant for that. Too careful with her words, but the small comments, they cut deeper. That evening, the dining table was filled with expensive dishes. YN didn't even know the names of crystal glasses. Quiet classical music. Everything polished and perfect. Everything that reminded her she didn't belong there. Jungkook was busy answering work calls beside his father, while YN sat awkwardly across from his mother. Then Suzy arrived. Bright smile, luxury handbag, familiar confidence. Jungkook's mother instantly softened. Suzy dear, come sit beside me. Win noticed it immediately. The warmth she kept begging for, given naturally to someone else. Suzy greeted YN politely before sitting down. It's been so long since I came here. You practically grew up here. Jungkook's mother smiled fondly. This house was always yours too. YN lowered her eyes quietly. Jungkook finally returned to the table, sitting beside YN. But even then, his attention kept drifting into conversations with Suzy and his parents. YN sat silently, fingers tightening under the tablecloth. Then his mother suddenly spoke. Jungkook, you should think carefully before rushing marriage. The table became still. YN's heartbeat slowed painfully. Jungkook frowned slightly. Mom, I'm only saying this because you're young, she continued calmly. Marriage isn't built on emotions alone. Her eyes shifted toward YN for just a second. A second long enough. You both come from very different worlds. Silence. YN felt humiliated instantly. Suzy looked uncomfortable now, sensing where this was heading. Jungkook sighed. We already discussed this, but have you really thought about your future? His mother asked gently. Compatibility matters. Lifestyle matters. Families matter. Looked down at her lap, before anyone could see her expression cracking. Middle class, that was the real issue. Not age, not timing, her. Jungkook finally noticed her silence, and touched her hand under the table. But somehow that made it worse, because he still wasn't defending her properly. His mother smiled softly towards Suzy. People who grow up similarly understand each other better. Now even Jungkook looked uncomfortable. Mom, stop. What? I'm speaking realistically. Yen slowly pulled her hand away from Jungkook's. That tiny movement made him glance at her immediately. Her face remained calm. Too calm. I should go home, she said quietly. Jungkook blinked. Right now? Yes. I'll drive you. No. Yen answered softly while standing up. You should stay with your family. The sentence sounded polite, but everyone at the table heard the hidden meaning. His family, not hers. As Yen walked toward the door, she heard Jungkook's mother say quietly behind her, I'm only trying to protect you. And for the first time, En wondered if Jungkook would ever truly choose her when it meant standing against his own world. The engagement preparations were supposed to make Yen happy. Instead, they exhausted her. Every day felt like she was holding on to Jungkook tighter, while he slowly slipped somewhere she couldn't reach. That evening, she arrived early at the hotel, where Jungkook had a business dinner with his parents. He had texted her hours ago come at 8. She went early. As she walked through the private lounge hallway, soft laughter made her stop. Jungkook and Suzy. The door wasn't fully closed. Inside, Suzy was fixing Jungkook's tie while laughing quietly. You still can't do this properly. Jungkook chuckled softly. Because someone always did it for me. The familiarity between them felt intimate. Without even trying, Yen stood frozen outside. Then Suzy noticed something on his cheek and casually brushed it away with her thumb. Neither of them moved back immediately. That pause shattered something in Yen's chest. Jungkook looked relaxed. Comfortable. A version of himself Yen hadn't seen in weeks. Then Suzy smiled softly. Your mom still wishes we ended up together. Jungkook didn't answer immediately. That silence was dangerous. Yen waited for him to deny it, to laugh, to say something. Instead, Jungkook looked down and smiled faintly. Like the topic was complicated, and that hurt more than words. Suzy noticed his expression too. You really loved me once, didn't you? Yen's breath caught. Jungkook exhaled quietly. That was a long time ago. Not I love Yen now, just a long time ago. Yen stepped back before they could see her. Her eyes burned instantly. For days, she kept telling herself she was insecure, overthinking, jealous for no reason. But seeing them together, she finally understood why her heart had been panicking all this time. Because Jungkook was emotionally returning to someone while still holding on to YN, physically. Later that night, Jungkook came home. He called her, she never reply. He find the apartment dark. Only one lamp near the couch was on. YN sat there silently. He immediately sensed something was wrong. What happened? She looked at him for a long moment, then quietly asked, "Did you ever love me the way you loved her?" Jungkook froze, and, in that silence, YN got her answer before he even spoke. Jungkook stared at her from across the bedroom, stunned by the question. YN laughed bitterly, eyes glossy. "Wow, that hard to answer? That's not fair," Jungkook snapped finally. "Why are you suddenly comparing yourself to Suzy again?" "Because you keep giving me reasons to." Her voice cracked louder than she intended. Jungkook ran a frustrated hand through his hair. "You're twisting everything. I saw you with her tonight again. She's sitting with your family." That stopped him cold. Yen stood up slowly from the bed. "The way she touched you. The way you looked at her." Her lips trembled. "And you just stood there. It wasn't like that. Then, what was it like, Jungkook?" she demanded. "Because, lately I feel like I'm watching my fiance fall for someone else right in front of me. I'm not falling for her, but you already did once." The room went silent again. Jungkook clenched his jaw and looked at him with heartbreak and anger mixed together. "You never even denied it when she asked if you loved her. It was years, but you still looked at her like she mattered. That doesn't mean I don't love you. Then, why do I feel so alone?" Her voice echoed through the apartment. Jungkook looked exhausted now too. "You think this is easy for me? Everyone keeps pulling at me from every side, my mom, you, Suzy." YN stared at him in disbelief. "You included me with them. That's not what I meant." "But that's what you said." She wiped her tears angrily before he could come closer. "I'm your future wife, Jungkook. I shouldn't have to beg for emotional space in your life. You're acting controlling. And you're acting unavailable." That hit him instantly. His expression changed. Jungkook stared at her, shaken. "Don't say that. I'm not avoiding you." YN wiped her tears. "Then why do you keep making me feel like I'm second to Suzy?" He went silent, then stepped closer. "Because I've been stupid. I kept defending myself instead of understanding how much I was hurting you." YN looked at him through tears. "I don't love Suzy, she is just my childhood best friend," he said firmly. "I love you. I should made that instead of letting my past interfere with our future." "You really mean that?" Jungkook nodded. "I choose you. When? I always should have made you feel chosen." Her anger slowly faded. "And I don't want to keep comparing myself to her. I just wanted to know I was enough for you." "You are." He pulled her into his arms. And after a moment, she hugged him back. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "Me too." For the first time, in weeks, they held each other without anger, finally understanding what they both needed from their relationship. That Sunday, Yi-en and Jungkook went ring shopping for their engagement. The luxury store glittered with diamonds, but the atmosphere between them felt fragile. The saleswoman, "Do you know what style you want?" YN picked a delicate ring. "This one is pretty." Jungkook barely glanced at it. "Yeah, it's nice." Her smile faded. Then, a familiar voice interrupted. "That design doesn't suit him." "Suzy." Jungkook looked surprised. "What are you doing here?" "Your mom asked me to pick something up nearby," she replied, casually, then looked at the rings. "You're choosing engagement rings." Suzy picked up another ring. "This one feels more like Jungkook." Jungkook's eyes immediately brightened. "Actually, I like that." Win froze. The saleswoman smiled innocently. "You two look like the couple shopping today." Suzy quickly shook her head. No, but YN had already stepped back. Jungkook grabbed her wrist. "Don't." She pulled away gently. "I suddenly don't feel well. Listen." "No, I'm tired of listening." She looked at the ring Suzy had chosen. She had said yes years ago. YN whispered. "Would I even be standing here today?" Jungkook opened his mouth, but he had no answer, and that silence hurt more than anything. YN didn't scream in the car. She didn't cry or throw anything. She simply stared out the window in silence. That scared Jungkook more than anger. "It wasn't like that," he said nervously. "The saleswoman misunderstood. Suzy showing up was just a coincidence." YN gave a bitter laugh. "Everything involving her is always a coincidence, right? Why are you making this bigger than it is?" That broke her. At the apartment, YN finally turned toward him. "You want honesty? Today humiliated me. It humiliated me too." "No," she said bitterly. "You still had someone beside you." Jungkook fell silent. "I sit there while your mother compares me to her, while people assume you belong together, and somehow you always seem happier around her. I'm not running to her. Then, why do you light up around her more than me?" He had no answer. YN looked away, fighting tears. "I'm starting to feel stupid, Jungkook." After that night, she stopped arguing. She stopped begging him to stay away from Suzy. She simply watched. And somehow, her silence made Jungkook even more nervous. A few days later he came home with a velvet box. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. Yi-en looked at him. The rings, I chose them again. Alone this time. She opened the box. Inside was the ring she had chosen that day. Hers. I should paid attention? Jungkook whispered. For a moment, YN's anger softened, but something inside her was still broken. 2 weeks before the engagement, YN finally visited her parents. The moment her mother opened the door, YN broke down in her arms. What happened? Did Jungkook hurt you? YN shook her head, crying harder. I'm just tired, Mom. Her mother held her tightly, and finally, YN whispered the truth. I don't know if he's choosing me anymore. Meanwhile, Jungkook sat alone in their apartment, staring at the untouched engagement invitations. For the first time, fear replaced his confusion, because YN had stopped fighting, and her silence scared him more than any argument ever could. The house was glowing with flowers, lights, and guests. Everyone called it beautiful. Nobody noticed YN's sadness. She had planned everything herself, the decorations, flowers, tables. Even Jungkook's favorite songs. Everyone praised her. She'll be a perfect daughter-in-law. YN smiled politely, hiding her pain, but Jungkook felt trapped. The engagement made everything feel permanent. That night, his mother entered his room. You still have time to think, she said. Mom, please. Marriage shouldn't happen because of guilt. You've been confused for weeks. And Susie, stop bringing Susie into this. His mother fell silent, because his reaction only proved one thing: Susie still mattered to him. The next morning, YN sat before the mirror in her engagement dress. Her mother gently asked, Are you sure? YN looked at herself, the jewelry, the dress. Everything she had dreamed of, but now it felt heavy. She knew Jungkook was confused. She knew his mother didn't want her, and she knew Susie was becoming more important in his life. Still, she loved him. YN finally nodded. Yes, but silently, she made a decision. She would stop forcing Jungkook to choose her. If his heart belonged to someone else, she would let him reveal it himself. Downstairs, the guests waited. Jungkook stood near the stage, nervous and distracted. Then YN appeared. The room went silent. She looked breathtaking. Jungkook's breath caught. For the first time, one thought hit him hard. What if I lose her? But then his eyes moved across the crowd. They met Susie's. YN saw it, and suddenly, her smile disappeared. The engagement ended with loud applause, cameras, and happy smiles. Jungkook stood before YN, holding her hand with trembling fingers. YN noticed his hesitation. She also noticed his eyes drifting toward Susie, but she said nothing. She wanted the truth. Would Jungkook stop the engagement himself, or keep choosing her? While his heart remained confused, finally he slipped the ring onto her finger. Everyone cheered. YN smiled for the cameras. Jungkook kissed her forehead, almost as if he were trying to convince himself this was the right choice. But after the engagement, everything changed. The ring slowly stopped feeling romantic to Jungkook. It felt like pressure, responsibility, and a future he wasn't sure he wanted. He became distant and distracted. One night, YN found him sitting alone in the dark, staring at their engagement photos. You haven't been sleeping, she asked. I'm fine. You've been distant. I'm stressed. With me? Jungkook sighed irritably. Why do you always make everything about us? The moment the words left his mouth, he regretted them. YN simply stared at him. But you did mean it. Her calmness unsettled him. She no longer cried, argued, or questioned him about Susie. She was still beside him physically, but emotionally, she was slowly stepping away. And Jungkook was terrified, because even while questioning their engagement, thought of losing YN still hurt. Then, during dinner with friends, someone joked, acts like marriage is a prison sentence. Everyone laughed, except YN. She waited for him to deny it. Instead, Jungkook gave a tired laugh. Honesty, it feels like one lately. The table went silent. YN lowered her eyes and continued eating. She didn't fight. She didn't cry. She simply accepted his words. And that night, Jungkook finally understood. YN had stopped trying to hold on to him, and somehow, losing her now scared him more than the engagement ever had.